There's a birthday in the American tax code that arrives with paperwork attached, and for most people it shows up quietly. That's the age the IRS starts requiring you to pull money out of your retirement accounts, whether you need it or not. The rule itself is old news to anyone who's been reading about retirement. Most people know the number. What they don't know is what happens with the deadline. Because the IRS does something that looks generous. It gives you an extra 3 months to take that first withdrawal. April 1st of the following year, instead of December 31st of the year, you turn 73. 3 extra months. Sounds like a favor. For a lot of retirees, taking that favor stacks 2 required withdrawals into the same tax year, and the bill for that shows up in 3 separate places. Your income tax, how much of your Social Security gets taxed, and your Medicare premium 2 years down the road. That's what today is about. The timing. Not the rule everybody already knows, but the part underneath it that costs real money. Everything here comes off the IRS page linked below. The IRS opens their page on this with a sentence I've always thought was oddly blunt for a government website. You cannot keep retirement funds in your account indefinitely. That's the whole philosophy. Traditional IRAs, SEP, and simple IRA, 401k plans, 403b plans, 457b plans, profit-sharing plans, all of it went in without being taxed, or grew without being taxed, and at some point the government wants its cut. The mechanism for collecting it is the required minimum distribution. You generally start when you reach 73. Each year, the amount is your account balance from the end of the previous calendar year, divided by a number from the IRS's Uniform Lifetime Table. That's it, balance divided by a factor. There's a separate table if your only beneficiary is a spouse more than 10 years younger than you, which lowers the required amount. And you can always take out more than the minimum. Nobody stops you. The minimum is a floor. Roth IRAs sit outside all of this while you're alive. Same for designated Roth accounts inside a 401k or 403b, as long as the owner is living. Your heirs, though, do fall under the distribution rules once they inherit, a detail that surprises families who assumed a Roth was permanently exempt. Here's the timing, and it's worth going slowly. Your first required withdrawal, the one for the year you turn 73, is due by April 1st of the following year. Every withdrawal after that is due December 31st of its own year. Read those 2 sentences together and the trap appears on its own. Say you turn 73 in 2026. Your 2026 withdrawal is due April 1st, 2027. Fine. But your 2027 withdrawal is due December 31st, 2027. Both of those land inside the 2027 tax year. 2 required withdrawals, 1 tax return. The IRS says this outright on their own page, using a man they call John. He reaches 73 in August of 2024, so his 2024 withdrawal is due by April 1st, 2025, and his 2025 withdrawal is due by December 31st. 2 distributions, 1 calendar year in the IRS's own example. And they tell you the fix in the same breath, though they say it so mildly that it's easy to skim past. You can take that first withdrawal by December 31st of the year you turn 73 instead of waiting. In their words, this would allow the distributions to be included in your income in separate tax years. That sentence is the entire video. 1 line on a government webpage, no bold, no warning box. Now, why does one crowded tax year matter so much? Because retirement income doesn't just get taxed, it gets measured, and several other systems use that measurement. Start with the obvious part. 2 withdrawals in 1 year means a bigger number on line 1 of your taxable income for that year. That alone can push you into a higher bracket. Then it reaches sideways into Social Security. If you've seen my video on how benefits get taxed, you know the formula counts half your benefits plus all your other income, and the thresholds haven't moved since 1983. A doubled-up withdrawal year drops a large chunk of other income right into that calculation. Benefits that weren't taxable last year can become taxable this year, purely because of when you took a withdrawal. And then there's the one that arrives late. Medicare sets your premium surcharge from your tax return from 2 years prior. So a crowded 2027 shows up in your 2029 Medicare bill long after you've forgotten why your income was high that year. By the time the surcharge lands, the money's spent and the reason is buried. There's an exception worth knowing if you're still working past 73, and it's genuinely useful. For a 401k profit-sharing plan, 403b, or other defined contribution plan, Your first required withdrawal is due April 1st following the later of two things: the year you reach 73 or the year you retire, if the plan allows the delay. So someone still on the payroll at 75 can potentially leave that workplace account alone. IRAS don't work that way. Traditional SEP simple. Those start at 73 regardless of whether you're still working. Two things limit this. If you own more than 5% of the business sponsoring the plan, the delay doesn't apply to you. And the plan document itself governs. The IRS notes that a plan may require distributions after 73 even if you're still employed. The delay is an option the plan can offer, not a right you automatically have. Worth an actual phone call to your plan administrator rather than an assumption. The IRS example here is a woman named Jody who retires on her 73rd birthday. Her plan allows the delay, so her first withdrawal is due April 1st, 2025, calculated from her balance at the end of 2023. Her second is due December 31st, 2025, same doubling. And if Jody also had an IRA, that account's withdrawal ran on its own schedule. The two don't offset each other. What happens if you miss it entirely? 25% excise tax on the amount you should have taken out and didn't, not on the account, on the shortfall. If you fix it within 2 years, that drops to 10%. You report the excise tax on Form 5329, and the instructions for that form spell out the correction process. The people who get caught by this usually aren't reckless. They're the ones with accounts scattered across 3 or 4 old employers, where nobody's tracking the total. Each custodian knows about its own account. None of them know about the others. If you're turning 73 this year, the decision in front of you is narrow, and it has a deadline. Take that first withdrawal by December 31st of this year, or use the April 1st extension and accept 2 withdrawals in next year's tax return. For most people with meaningful account balances, spreading them across 2 years costs less. If your income this year happens to be unusually high, a property sale, a final year of wages, the calculation could go the other way, and that's exactly the kind of thing worth walking through with someone who can see your whole return. If you're a few years out from 73, this is the window people wish they'd used. The years between retiring and turning 73 are the ones where your income is often at its lowest, and the required withdrawals haven't started. What you do in that gap, or don't, shapes how large those forced withdrawals eventually are. If you're already past 73 and taking them, check that every account is accounted for. 73, balance, divided by a factor, out by December 31st every year after the first one. The part that costs money is that first deadline, and the 3 extra months that look like a favor. The IRS tells you on their own page that taking the withdrawal in the earlier year keeps the distributions in separate tax years. They just don't tell you why that matters, or that Social Security taxation and Medicare premiums are both watching that number. Everything here came from the IRS page on required minimum distributions. Go read it. It's shorter than you'd expect, and it's the actual source rather than someone's summary of it. Next time, the charitable withdrawal rule that starts at 70 and a half, 3 years before your required distributions due, and what that gap is for. Subscribe if this is useful. I read the rules so you don't have to.